Welcome to the podcast, guys. Always start with the sponsor, OhioFishRescue.com.
.com.
Go to their website. Consider giving them money.
Probably give him some money.
And give them a call.
Give them some love.
So these guys are a not-for-profit charity group that take care of large fish that beginners have bought from a store and have no place to house them.
How big are they?
They're not going to fit in a 10-gallon because, that bala shark has already reached 16 inches.
What?
So, again, they don't have, like an animal shelter or a pound. These guys are the animal shelter for fish. So buy a T-shirt. Go on their website. Give them a buck. And their number is 216-773-0407. Give them your love. And just call them and tell them, I love you, and hang up the phone.
Do it. It's the right thing.
We're just waiting to see, because we're going to have an interview with these guys on the podcast eventually here in the near future. We want to see how many people actually call them and just say, I love you, and hang up. Because that would make our day.
They'll probably be so happy with us, they'll punch us in the throat.
They will. So work with us.
Cool.
Tell them you love them. Give them a buck. Let's kick that podcast.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Aquarium Guys podcast with your hosts, Jim Colby and Rob Zolson.
Welcome, guys, to the podcast. Today, we're going to do a off-topic episode. There's going to be no real guest other than one of our fans decided to join us on Discord. And before we get too far, I'm Rob Zolson, and my host next to me,
Jim Colby.
And we also have Adam in the studio. Say hi.
Hi, I'm here also.
But our guest star is Mr. Pickles. Introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, my name is Mr. Pickle. I'm from Canada. I'm 16 and a young aquarist, just kind of getting into the hobby, and I have so many questions.
So who better to help out than a bunch of old guys sitting on a podcast talking about fish all day? So we're appreciative to have you on. Again, this is a little plug. We have a Discord, so if you want, more than just leaving a voicemail for us, sending us an email, you want oh no, my fish is flopping, what do I do? Message us on Discord.
Put it back in the tank.
It'll be, the link for Discord is on the bottom of our website. And we'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you, Mr. Pickles, again. So we're going to dive in to a little fan mail because we're getting more of that now.
What?
We're popular, Jimmy.
No, we're not.
Yes, we're on our way to be, at least number 2 podcast for aquarium out there.
In this town.
No, worldwide, sir.
Worldwide.
Wow,
we're shooting for the stars today.
Yeah, we got to flex. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually had a lot of listens this week. It was fantastic. Last week we had Steve Rubicki of Angels Plus. He gave us a wealth of information. He was so giving of his time and his knowledge. I just want to say, Steve, thank you again. We're hoping to have him again on another podcast.
Also, I'd like to take a note before we get into fan mail that, at the end of our podcast, we decided to shoot a new outro. And I've been getting a lot of, not flack. I've been getting a lot of people agreeing with us that, Endlers are feeder guppies.
Guppies.
That we're going to keep that outro.
Wait, what? This is a thing now? I know one guy.
Yeah.
Well, two, because 2 are in this studio.
At least. And Mr. Pickles is learning to be us. So.
Yeah, nobody likes Endlers, Adam.
No. So, that was not our intent. We have an inside joke that we, just to reef on Adam because he loves Endlers. Endlers are a wonderful species. They're extinct in the wild. We do love them. However, we're going to continue giving Adam crap forevermore.
Forever.
So I'm glad you guys like that outro. Keep giving us the feedback. And now for our bit of fan mail. We have from Andrew in Ireland.
Ireland, Minnesota?
No, Ireland, the country, I'm pretty sure.
What?
We'll have to go through
Is
this
it
email.
.ire?
Well, I can't give out that personal information, sir. This is anonymous.
Somebody in another country are listening to us?
He lets me know. Who knew, right? So it says, hey guys, I was wondering if you could do a podcast on developing new strains of guppies or keeping current ones healthy. I'm a breeder based in Ireland, so it must be the country, for the last 2 years and have plenty to learn. and think this topic would do well for other listeners on podcasts if it isn't discussed on any other social, because it isn't discussed on any social media platform. You could discuss multiple fish, how similar they are, etc. Again, thanks, guys, for doing a great job on the podcast. Listened up to every podcast so far. Thumbs up.
Wow,
So,
2 thumbs up?
just one. We're working on earning 2.
At least
So-
it wasn't the middle finger.
Andrew from Ireland, we got your request loud and clear, and we actually have a lot of podcasts scheduled up, so we're going to do some of these in between podcasts as well. But we will absolutely have a guppy breeder specialist on here to talk about how to develop strains, how to do show. We have a lot of options, and even Steve Rubicki was giving us some recommendations. So there's going to be a lot more to come. We are not going to ignore your request, but it's definitely going to be a couple weeks out before we get that expert in the podcast studio.
Yeah, we were going to reach out to somebody, trying to find out the expert who's going to know all the answers to these questions. Coming up this week, we're hoping to have Julie from Segrist Farms. They sell thousands and thousands of guppies per week, and she does have quite a few interesting tidbits on how to keep a healthy guppy healthy, and we'll dwell into that a little bit probably on Wednesday.
She's a wealth of knowledge. How many years has she been in the industry from your guess?
I'm guessing over 30 years. I've been buying from Julie for over 25 years. When my wife and I go down to Florida, Julie and my wife and I always go out and have dinner and maybe have a few drinks and stuff. And it's just amazing. Every time we sit down, I hear a new story and learn a lot of new stuff. So we're really looking forward to having her coming up on Wednesday.
Perfect. So, again, just a little more cleanup. Guys, I'm so excited. We have the Aquarium Guys official merch store ready for you guys to get that sweet Aquarium Guys podcast gear.
What can I get?
You can get T-shirts. You can get hoodies. We even have female attire, because clearly they have different
Bikinis.
shapes. We have crop tops.
What?
Yes. I don't even think that was supposed to be approved, but I don't care.
I
If
think
you
you-
want a crop top, we got a crop top.
I want you to wear one next week.
I tell you what.
You wear the crop top, and I will wear something sexy too.
I'll tell you what. We get. Let's make a goal here.
What's that?
We get 20 people to hit our store. No, that's not enough. That's a crop top. All right, we get 30 different people ordering from our merch store. I will personally buy and wear a crop top and take a picture and put it on our Twitter.
Oh, that will make everybody throw up in their mouth.
Oh my goodness!
I will purge.
I want you guys just to take a minute
Blow
and really
chunks.
imagine the stretch marks that you're gonna see.
Rob's a large man.
I'm a very large man.
He's large.
I'm a lot to love.
Yes, it's a community affair to love Rob.
It is. But check it out. Again, aquariumguyspodcast.com on the bottom of the website. Merch store. Hit it up. It got great deals. And for the next, I think it's 12 days. Maybe it's 11 days. You'll see the promo code on there. They have a 15% off for us kicking off the store. So make sure to use that. I believe that goes towards your shipping as well. You'll see on the website. But again, 15% off. So hop on it and let's get me in a crop top.
Let's do it.
Wait, Adam, we have to do some bikini waxing, you and me, before
Nah.
we do that.
No.
Come on, you got to be in the crop
You're the
top too. I can't go solo on
No.
this.
Well, I could probably pull it off before you could.
You'd look better in it.
Actually,
to be
what
fair.
it should be is Jim should be in the crop top.
You got that tanned olive skin. You know what I mean?
You
It's
are.
natural brown.
No one wants to see Jimmy in it. Like there's me, you, and then there's him. So we'll just stick to us.
Wow. I'm right here. I can hear you.
I'm so sorry. We were supposed to mute
Buttholes.
you.
All right.
All right, so let's dive into the podcast. What we got is a lot of different requests, not just Andrew that had requests, but requests from a lot of our listeners, and they wanted I'm a beginner. You guys talk a lot about breeders and the industry, and I'm a beginner. I want to start from here. I've never done a fish tank before. If I've done one in the past, but it didn't work out. Please, where do I get started? So we're going to do a crash tutorial podcast on getting started with your first aquarium. So, Mr. Pickle, we are privileged to have you in here today, and you said, again, you're 16. You're just getting into the hobby for the first time. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
So before we get into the whole beginner conversation top to bottom, which again, we'll love your perspective as well. But you had a question for the show, and that's why we have you on the Discord. So I believe you had a question about the cycle. Was that correct?
Yeah. I just got my new 10-gallon tank, and I'm not sure how to cycle it without fish, because I know the fish cycle, there's a chance you'll kill the fish, which is just kind of stupid and a waste of money. So how do I do a fishless cycle, and how does it work?
Now, Mr. Pickle, you live in Canada, correct?
Yeah.
And are you near major city, or are you out in the plains?
No, near a major city.
Major city. Well, most of your major places, such as your Petcos, your PetSmarts, will carry what I call bacteria in a bottle.
Yep, that's the best stuff ever.
And what is the stuff called, Adam?
Well, it depends. If he's up in Canada, he's probably got Rolf C. Hagen's bacteria in a bottle.
They also have stress zyme in Canada as well.
Yep.
Yeah, but the Rolf C. Hagen stuff I found works better than Stress Zyme. But Stress Zyme, if you're really hurting, will work in a pinch.
And the thing about this, all the enzymes that you can buy, right now is probably the time you want to buy that stuff, because what happens when they ship Stress Zyme or any of this other stuff, if it freezes, it's no
dead.
good. It's no good. And so you really want to get it this time of year. You want to go out and buy it right now, because when they've been shipping it all summer long up in Canada. It's nice up in Canada right now, and it'll be live. But going back to Stress Zyme, there's also one called Stress Coat, and you don't want to mix those two together. Stress Coat is basically an aloe vera type product
It's a dechlorinizer for your water.
Yeah, it dechlors your water. It also puts a slime coating on your fish, and that's also a great product. But you also want to use Stress Zyme, and you really, for the most part, you can't really overdo Stress Zyme, can you?
Well, the
No.
idea is it's bacteria in a bottle. You're putting in essentially, living a little bit of crap
Organisms.
in your tank. So the more you add, the more crap you have to really fully cycle your aquarium. So if you put too much, well, you just do a water change. Nothing's going to hurt because of it.
But yeah, if you do, you put it in, and what it's there for is to break down the waste. And I like to compare it to, and it sounds really silly, but I'm an old guy, and we used to have outhouses back in the day, and when you go in an outhouse in July, it didn't smell good. It was not good at all. And so I kind of compare an aquarium. You put an aquarium together, you throw your first few fish in there, everything's fine and dandy for 4 or 5 days, but all of that waste in the aquarium starts building up. And after it starts building up, there's nothing naturally in the aquarium to break down that waste. And so they'll actually kill themselves with their own waste. That's probably the easiest way to put it.
So to go through the actual cycle, that's what we do to cheat the cycle, because we're not going to wait and give the whole full amount of time for a cycle to complete. So the
Yeah.
idea is when you have an aquarium, however big, how big is your tank, Mr. Pickles?
Well, this one that I'm trying to cycle right now is a 10-gallon tank.
What do you have in there for fish?
Nothing currently, but you see, what I was doing, I have biomedia from my other tank that I put inside.
Bravo.
Perfect, dude.
Bravo.
There you go. That works.
Good job.
That's why I was going to ask, is that the same as like buying a starter culture of bacteria? In
It's
a
even
bottle?
better.
It's better because it's already
Yeah.
ready to go.
It's even better. So the idea with the cycle is fish produce waste, urine, poop, whatever else, uneaten food, and it all creates to ammonia in the tank. And if there's no bacteria to break down that ammonia, it becomes toxic for anything that's living in there, including plants. So you want bacteria to eat and consume the ammonia in the tank to create nitrite, and then you want other bacteria to turn that into nitrate, and the cycle continues. So without that breakdown, you're just going to have an overload of ammonia in your tank to kill your fish. So again, when people start with just a bare tank and they've been told by some Petco person, just let it run for 30 days, that's not quite accurate. You either have nothing in there to start the cycle with. So when you have that bacteria in a bottle, or you did it the better way, is grab some old, filter media, maybe an old sponge from the other tank, don't rinse it out and just throw it in there. That starts the process. And it starts the process right away, so you don't have to wait that big time period. Because most people, without a friend in the hobby or knowing that the bacteria in a bottle exists, they have to just put maybe one fish and then wait for it to start to build before they add a bunch more to risk the lives of the other fish. And it's not a fun process, and it's a lengthy time depending on how much you're putting in your tank.
And you also saved about $7 or $8. So good job.
What kind of
Yeah.
fish were you planning on putting in the 10-gallon?
Well, that's the thing. I'm trying to decide. I'm still deciding. For a while, I really wanted to put in an axolotl, those little lizard things.
Okay.
But
Well, we're glad you didn't.
yeah, because it's a bit of a small tank for that. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe a beta fish or I don't know, something like that.
So let's go from the top.
Thinking.
And we'll go through this, and we'll have you listen in, and we'll get some your viewpoints there, Mr. Pickle, along the way.
Yeah.
And hopefully by the time this podcast is over, maybe we can give you some ideas.
What do you have set up
All
in your other tank right now? Do you have another tank set up?
Okay, well, you see, the other tank was, because originally I wanted to get a big tank so I could get a cool setup. I found it from this old man on Kijiji. He couldn't really take care of it anymore, and it's a really decent setup. It came with a stand, a 55-gallon tank.
Oh, that's
filter,
the best starter.
Yeah, the filter, the heater, everything, and also the decorations and the fish inside. It came with 4 goldfish, a golden gourami, 1 Cory catfish, and a massive pleco that was way too big for the tank. So yeah, I did my research, and I sold most of the fish that were in the tank already.
Do you still have that Cory?
Yeah.
Okay, put the Cory in the 10-gallon tank if you put some of the stuff from there. That way the Cory will keep the cycle built up a little bit. You could just put a little bit of flake food in there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, you got to have something in there to produce a little bit of waste, or else the bacteria just kind of
starves.
Well, what I was doing, I was putting in like fish food. I heard that does just as well as fish waste. So I put in some fish food to start up the cycle.
It can, but the problem is it breaks down so much worse because you don't have all the bacteria. So you're starting at a different point.
Oh, okay.
So the food will rot much faster than your filter that has already had some of the process started.
Won't be able to keep up.
Right.
Okay.
So it's best to always use a filter media because that has good bacteria and the bad, whereas just putting fish food in creates the bad at first.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, okay.
Let's start from the top. All right. We have Mr. Pickle here that he did some homework. He's an educated gentleman and decided that he wants to look into a tank. And we'll put what's our metaphorical person here? We'll put Jeff. Jeff is 16 years old, and Jeff's looking for a tank, and he has different options out there. So he thinks start small, right? Small means easy. No, small doesn't mean easy.
Small means a lot of work.
So if you're going to pick the size of tank, we really recommend the bigger you can go, the better. And we like to say the most you can afford. But if you're going to start a tank, go on Facebook Swap and Shop, go on your Craigslist, with your mom's help, and try to find a bigger system. 55 is perfect. It's nice and large, and the larger the tank is, the easier it is to take care of. You don't have to worry about if something dies, the ammonia killing the entire tank because you have enough water in there. You can easily build up more bacteria because there's more surface area of the entire tank, and you're having the correct size for at least the majority of tropical fish to live out their entire lives. So you don't have to start with a small one. Oh, they outgrew it, now I have to go buy another. So if you can, start large, but minimum for most of these fish that we'll recommend, a 10-gallon will certainly cut it. 55 is the best, but trying to get to a 10-gallon, the nano tanks are way more difficult. If one tiny iota goes bad, those small nano tanks you get at Walmart crash so easy.
With a large amount of water, it's more forgiving. When you have 10 gallons versus, say, 20 or 55, like Rob's just said, you have one dead fish that passes away. It's up there in the corner of the tank. You don't notice it. You don't scoop it out right away. It just deteriorates, and it will take that tank down with it, fairly quickly. So the larger tank that you have, the more forgiving it is. I mean, and we all know, and if you leave for the weekend, that's when that fish is going to die. Every single time.
And even sometimes, depending on the fish, if they're long fin fish, you'll have issues where the fish will die, and within that day when you're gone, they'll already start rotting because you have a small tank that's heated. It's the perfect storm.
It's a cooker.
You're baking your fish, not a slow baking at least, and they'll rot out by the time you get home. You have to do a massive water change, and oh look, they already got sick from what happened.
Rob's, who was that? The other day we got a nice email or something. Somebody had said that they really liked the Steve Rubicki podcast, and he said how much. Steve says he works 7 days a week. This person said that they had been in their store.
Piranhas.
Yeah, with piranhas. 2 years they had been in there. And the only day they missed was like Christmas Day, and that was the time that their breeding piranhas kicked off one of the filters or something like that, and they lost everything.
Yeah, the intake filter.
So shout out to Anthony. Anthony is in Michigan, and he was messaging us on how he liked the podcast. But yeah, just missing that one day, he lost a big breeding pair of piranha. So it
Heartbreaking. It really is.
If you have a bigger tank and something like that happens, you have a few more hours for sure for
Right.
even oxygen to be dealt with.
No, was Anthony a pet store owner? Was it my understanding?
He was, yes.
And he was producing enough piranha to sell for himself and also sell back to his wholesaler. So I mean, a big loss of money for Anthony. And so, but like we all have a friend, and his name is Tyler Tolfsrud, and Ty always says to me, he goes, I never say this is my favorite fish anymore, because that's the one that's going to be dead tomorrow. And Ty has 3 children, and he won't tell you which one his favorite is, because he said every time I say that's my favorite, and it's gone. So it's just the law of averages. It seems like it always goes wrong.
So let's say they did, what we don't recommend and get the smaller tank. So they got a 10-gallon tank. Now the next choice is, what substrate do you choose? Now there's 2 main substrates to choose for beginner hobbyists. Number 1 is pea gravel. You'll get this you can get colored, you can get natural color. I always try to dissuade people from getting the colored because, yes, the paint may be quote-unquote aquarium safe in how they color these rocks, but they chip and it just cruds up the aquarium very quickly because that color, that bright neon color in the tank, does not last forever, and the rocks will literally chip apart. So
Yeah,
if you
because
can,
it's just quartz spray painted with paint.
yeah, literally, it's just aquarium safe spray paint. So as you wash the gravel, as you take care of it, and as it runs, they'll chip apart. They'll look like hell, and any type of small algae, which is good for the gravel, looks like crud on that neon gravel. So stay away from colored rocks as much as you can, and stay to the natural colors because, again, you won't really see algae on them. They're not painted. They're not going to chip, and they're going to last literally forever.
It'll look little more natural. But, it's hard when you've got young children who are 3 and 5 and they want the bright pink gravel. I mean, you're probably going to end up putting it in. But like Rob said, you're going to see where that doesn't look so great after about a month.
So the pros and cons. Pros, the pea gravel holds a lot of that beneficial bacteria. It's gonna hold a lot of the bits and pieces.
More surface area.
It's more surface area for the tank.
Correct.
And for some fish, depending on the fish, they do like to be able to pick up stones. Some cichlids like to move little bits of gravel.
Little bits?
Some whole mouthfuls, and they build nests.
They'll move 50 pounds of gravel from one end of the tank to the other, jerks.
We don't recommend those fish for new beginner hobbyists, by the way. And
They normally don't even get sold in the hobby, really. I mean, and you have to go to like a specialty store to find them.
You just gotta go to good people.
For cichlids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the other substrate to choose from is sand, and there's a lot of different sand choices out there. No,
Yeah,
don't
no
listen
sand.
to these guys. I'm going to tell you the pros and cons and the reasoning why they're booing.
Rob's been drinking all day.
Sand is my favorite. The reason being is the cons against gravel is that food and poop particles fall between gravel, and you have to gravel vac continually. Whenever you do a water change, and you have to be very thorough, you can get these gravel vac kits at Walmart. They're around $10-15, and you have to siphon and literally push a tube in this gravel, cleaning all the crap out continually. It's a big pain in your rear end, and if you're not faithful or like do it enough, or you miss a spot, you're adding rot to your aquarium, and you're literally letting crap and old food sit there and rot in your tank. So with sand, the pros and cons, sand does not let any particles, poop or food or otherwise, through. And for Coriodoras and a lot of bottom feeders, it's really fun to watch them dig and play in the sand. It's a really fun space for fish, especially if you have, it's legal in your area, dojo loaches or coolie loaches. They love to dig and play, and it's fun to watch through. The cons. If you're in your tank with nets scooping around, you'll kick sand everywhere, and it might get into your filter, number one.
It will get in your filter.
It will get into your filter.
Yeah.
But the argument is most modern filters don't have issue with sand anymore. They used to be a burnout right away. Marine land, all kinds of stuff. I've seen literally like a half inch of sand in the bottom, and they work just fine. So
Wait, in the bottom of the impeller unit or in the bottom of the filter basket itself?
In both, a little bit in the filter unit itself and the basket. So they have bigger blades. They handle a little bit better, but you still can have issues. It's not, guaranteed to not burn out your filter. And two, every 3 to 4 months, you're going to have to take just a stick. You can use maybe a crochet rod. You can use a dowel and just wiggle it around in the sand to let bubbles escape. So let's say that one tiny piece of something got in the sand. Well, it's going to decay, and it's going to make a little air pocket in the sand because it can't escape because the sand's so tight. So you taking a stick just knocks those pockets of gases out of the sand, and you have to do this about once every 4 months, and it's real simple. And again, those are the real reasons people hate sand. So pros and cons. I personally love sand, and you can get good aquarium sand, 50-pound bag at your local hardware store for pool filter sand. And the reason I say pool filter sand, it's the correct grade, meaning it's not so fine it's going to just cloud up your water and leave particles everywhere. And it's pH neutral because it's just nice, wholesome, pure, nice, blonde-looking sand.
Midwestern sand.
Midwestern sand. Wholesome sand. It goes to Chick-fil-A sand. Not on Sundays because they're closed. But, $8 for 50 pounds, just rinse it out well, and it works so well and works great for plants.
And that's about a 4 or 5 week process of going through, and I hate you, Rob, so much. I am not a fan of sand.
No.
I'm not a huge fan of gravel either.
I hate gravel. Sand's way better.
But what sucks is that Rob's got a beautiful 125-gallon tank down here with 200 rummy nose. Got plants growing out of that thing like a bevy. I mean, just beautiful. And he's got great success there. But I'm still not a fan of sand. Why don't you just put cement down? It's the same. It's just as hard and ugly looking.
Well, Jimmy's going to talk about bare bottom here pretty quickly, but
not your bare bottom. Not even a chance of talking about your bare bottom.
So those are the main two choices for sand for beginners. There's other
See, there you go.
There's other
sand
substrates. There's other substrates for sand or gravel. There's other substrates to choose from, but this is what we recommend for beginners. Going past that, you'll do potting, clay, and all kinds of different stuff for plants. Just stick to either sand or gravel. Know your pros and cons.
Yeah, you can spend a ton of money on different substrates when you start doing shrimp and different things which are more advanced. And I have what size is my cube?
Well, they call you Moneybags Colby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Amazon has me on their birthday wish list.
Oh my God.
But anyway, I bought some pretty expensive substrate for my 90-gallon cube tank where I have discus, and it turned to kind of mud after about a year, and I was not happy with it. So, but I mean, everybody that has their favorite substrate, it's just do your research and decide what's best for you.
Oh, and I'm picking on them. I'm like, how much you spend on that? You realize it's $8 for 50 pounds. Come on, man.
Yeah. This brought to you by Menards.
All right. So the next piece is decor. So before we do decor, you need to know what type of fish you have. Do some homework. Pickles really showed initiative when he said, I had to do homework, what I was supposed to do, try to find more about the cycle. He said use filter media. Do some homework on the fish. Look at their care needs, and they'll show that, they love, being between large plants. They love a little bit of floating plants on the top. They love caves to go into. Do your homework, but, start out, are you going to use plastics or live plants? And most people are like, live plants, this is already too intimidating. I'm done. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this easy on you. We're going to give you 5 beginner plants that you can go out to your pet store and pick up that are really, really easy and low maintenance. And above all else, you shouldn't be able to kill real easy.
And the other thing, too, is I've seen this worked a few times. Mr. Pickle, earlier we had him when we were off the air, he was saying, why is everything so gosh darn expensive? And the one thing you can do, and you can start out with some plastic plants. There are some very realistic looking plants. There's some silk plants. If you're new and you want to try live plants, go ahead and put in 4 or 5 plastic plants or silk plants, and then put in 1 or 2 live towards the front, and just see how it goes for you. Depending on your water quality or what you have in your water and your lighting situation, live plants may be so easy for you. Live plants for Rob is very easy. He's got a beautiful setup over here in his 125. Over in my 90-gallon cube, it is so deep and my light is so cruddy that I don't have very good luck with plants. So
That and you spent $90 on poop sand.
poop sand.
So
Thanks, Amazon.
thanks Amazon.com. We are not sponsored by them.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're shooting for the moon.
So, number one on the plant list is Amazon swords. And there's a whole long line of diverse Amazon swords. But if you go into your pet store, they'll have whatever selection they believe in. Probably that'll be closer to resemble your water requirements. And just ask him, I want the hardiest sword you have. And he will certainly direct you because almost every pet store has swords.
And
They're a
the-
very, very common, easily, just beautiful green, basic growing plant.
And with live plants, there's a little white stick usually in most of them. If you find the potted plants, there's a little white stick in there. Take a second, take a look, and see how big is this darn thing going to get. Because there's so many different Amazon sword plants. Some only get 2 to 4 inches. Some will get 6 to 8. Some will get 14, 16 inches.
Most that they sell for assorted swords stay a nice smaller size, but the ones that you got to be cautious of is melon swords. Melon swords they're very beautiful. They're used a lot from angelfish and discus, and they're very hardy and can take a beating, but they get big. There's giant leaves in your tank.
So you might want to save that one for your 55.
Exactly. Next on the list is dwarf sage, and this is held by many, many aquarists. Normally, they throw them out every month in a small ice cream pail.
Because they grow so much.
It looks exactly like crabgrass and grows just like it. So it just has this nice little, shoot out that looks like grass. And
Get off my lawn.
It will grow all the way to the top of your tank in some situations. And when it decides to multiply, it just shoots out more roots and continues a chain of grass growing down your gravel.
And it'll shoot roots underneath or on top or both. And it just kind of multiplies by itself.
And this is one of the plants that you can actually have pea gravel with, because most plants have a lot of difficulties. There's not a lot of nutrition in the pea gravel. So this is a great one that if you're using those actual pea gravel, it will burrow right through it and shoot up and sprout.
What else you got?
So we have the traditional guppy grass.
Very
I'm going to
hard
let you talk about this, Jimmy.
Guppy grass. I love guppy grass. Go on the internet, type in guppy grass. It is not easy to find. It took me over 6 months to find somebody with guppy grass. One of my friends who own a pet store, they went down to a convention down, I believe it was like Iowa, and they came back with these bags of guppy grass. And they're great floating type of plant that sits on top. It's not really leafy. It's more kind of forked. But I raise a lot of shrimp, and the shrimp just go crazy gaga over it. And what's nice about it is in a shrimp tank, you got to be real careful for when you start having live plants die. The shrimp love the dead plants, but the dead plants will eventually cloud up your water and make it nasty.
Well, if the plants die, the shrimp eat it and create more waste. And
Right.
It'll be an explosion of waste because they'll eat the dead plants so vivaciously and fast.
Yeah, but they with the guppy grass, there's so much coverage, so much area on it where they can just graze and get the algae off of it. And I love guppy grass. And like I said, it's not easy to find. You probably have to go on somewhere like Aquabid, or bug your
Buddy to give
bug
you
your
a
buddy.
clump.
Yeah, right. And so I recently bought what did I buy? I bought like 6 or 7 bags of it, and I gave some to Rob's. I gave some to my other friend Ty. And in case I lost mine, then at least I have a backup. And so that's always good if you've got friends who are in the hobby. If you've got something like you love, like Adam's got these crappy, what are they called? Antler guppies. And
Antler live bears.
Oh, that's right.
Feeder guppies.
And he gave some to Rob's, and you know what? That's a good idea, because if for some reason Adam's got 4 children at home, and for some reason they're throwing a ball and they broke the aquarium, and he lost
They
all
would
his fish.
never do such a thing.
Yeah, your children are perfect. I've seen them. And then at least, he'd have a backup. He could call Rob and say, "Hey, I lost all my fish. Can I get some fish from you?" And Rob's go, "Sure," for $30.
We've lost more fish out of the hobby due to somebody not spreading them around to other people. Like Steve Rubicki was telling us a story about the yellow betas that he said were just like neon yellow, and now they're gone because he gave them away and nobody else kept them.
Right.
So to go down the list again, to get back on track, we have Anacris. So Anacris is, I'd say, one of the oldest traditional plants because it's so versatile and you can use it in cold water with your goldfish is really why it got popular. So Anacris is this bushy stem looking plant, And this can be planted, it can be floating, and again, the colder the water, the better it works. And how they sell these in pet stores, because most pet stores have them, is they'll sell them with a little, I don't know, like metal lead,
It's a lead weight.
like a lead weight stuck to the bottom, holding them together in a bunch.
Yep.
So you can just plant that with the little metal weight that it has, and plant that right in your gravel, or you can take apart the lead weight and just let it float at the top. So it's a very diverse type of plant. And again, if you're using goldfish, great plant to have. Although goldfish, again, they'll probably nom on some plants, but again, does well in cold water on top of tropical. Give that to go, and the best one for last.
What's
right?
that? What do you got?
I have just recently, in the last 2 years, gotten into hornwort for the first time.
Oh gosh.
And hornwort, I'm not exaggerating. I have a 55-gallon rescue tank up in my kitchen, and I planted one piece of it that was floating in a bag. Just one. I'm talking speck. I put it in my tank and planted it, and now every single week I take one of those big ice cream pails full, and I'm not talking just like, ooh, I stacked it. Nope, I'm talking pushed, packed, full. I throw away one every week of hornwort. You cannot kill it. It can work in every tank. You can have it free floating. You can plant it, and if you want it to multiply, you don't have to wait for it to shoot out. You can rip it in pieces and replant it across your tank, and it will grow up from the bottom. In one day, I measured in the most perfect conditions, almost an inch of growth.
Are you kidding me?
It's amazing. Now, they look like little pine needles. They kind of like the old traditional plastic plants. This is what they model off of. And it just looks like a clump of, bushy, needly type plant. They're not leafy at all. But if you want the hardiest, there's no possible way I can kill it plant, that is your best beginner plant I can possibly recommend. Just make sure to not let it overtake the tank, and you're going to have to do some weed trimming.
And I have a store, and I buy hornwort, anacris, and that's one of my top 2 sellers because we're just basically a small store. But like Rob said, the hornwort, he's come over to my house with buckets of hornwort, and I just throw them in my shrimp tank. And I saw that I had 100 shrimp in there yesterday, and now I look in there now, and I see like I got 6 shrimp because they're all hiding in the hornwort. And that stuff just floats on the top of my tank. I don't plant mine, and it just goes and grows and grows. I hate this stuff.
All right, so now decorations. So before we get into decorations, there's these cool things at Walmart that you wanted to talk about. The traditional, what would you say, treasure chest bubblers?
Oh gosh, I love those. When I first got in,
Everybody.
Well, go ahead, Adam.
No. Go ahead, Jim.
You're gonna say everybody hates them?
No, they're not my cup of tea, but everybody likes them because they think it's the coolest thing in the world to have them.
Yeah, I think they're really lame too, but I just like to get Rob's going. But the treasure chest that you see in there, I used to have one of those treasure chests, and it would chop the head off a fish about once every 3 months. I swear to God, the little treasure, the little treasure chest.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm not dead serious. The little treasure chest would pop up and just chop his. Is hilarious.
Okay, so
I have that, like something like that.
I'll buy it from you, Mr. Pickle.
So before you go too far, I'd like to point out that, Jimmy's not a young man anymore, and the treasure chests that he has probably were made out of lead, and they were literally slashing heads off. The ones they sell now have smooth edges and are plastic from Walmart, sir.
Yeah, mine.
But the treasure chests from Walmart that they sell now, the plastic ones, they fade and the paint gets in there and they just get nasty after
They're
a
cheap.
while.
You gotta have pros and cons.
I'm
but-
just going to blame the Chinese for that.
Exactly. That's the tariffs.
That's the tariffs.
But they're fun. You need aeration in the tank, and again, we'll go over the checklist of what you should have with your fish, and aeration's real high on the list. So if you have any tank, you're not going to be an expert of, how much oxygen do they need? Just make sure you have a bubbler, so you can pick up a nice, a blower, aerator, put the cord right to it, and these bubblers are really fun for your kids. They, don't get a big heavy metal one that chops off fish's heads. And if you get a plastic one, it's probably going to fade and chip, and it's only going to last so long. But they're still fun for your kids, and they're very safe way to get some aeration in the tank and make it look kiddish.
Yeah, if you've got young children, they're going to love it. If you're old like me, chops off fish heads, you're going to love it. No, you're not going to love that. But I tell you, I've still got the darn thing. I'm going to dig it out of a box somewhere. And the one I had was heavy. And for some reason, every time this little chest would open up after I fed, it would kind of suck in a little bit of food. and the food would be in that chest, and those fish would sit there and try to time it like they're playing miniature golf. And then they'd get their head smacked. I don't know if I actually ever saw a fish, die, but I saw a lot of concussions happening there. It was kind of like the NFL on Sunday. And but there's a lot of cool. What do I want to say? The old ones. I've got a ceramic mermaid that is just classic that I'm trying to find. Rob's just came over to my house the other day, and he stole my 10-gallon stainless steel tank from what year was that, Rob? Do you think it was?
I dated
That was
it.
supposed to be mine.
I dated it.
Yeah, Adam wanted it.
On the hood, right? They had this sweet. The hood is completely intact.
Yes,
The
it's
hood. They
what you
had
never find.
this 2-prong, not 3-prong plug, because they didn't have grounding back then, right? And on it, this is the light socket plug, right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
It had patent pending. The patent wasn't even done for the light socket. It was so old.
Yeah.
So I looked up the manufacturer, and the time the patent was officialized was pre-World War II. So it must be early 1940s, late 30s.
Yep. And this is a stainless steel 10-gallon tank with a slate bottom. Usually you can find a tank here or there, but you very seldom get them with a nice top that fits, that's not banged up, because they're stainless steel. They're not rusty. I mean, this thing's in pristine, and I've had it over at my house on a shelf down in my fish room. Rob's comes over, whines, cries. He
stole it.
He even wets his pants a little bit, and he goes, "I really want that, Jimmy." And I go, "No, just to be a jerk." And so the other day he came over and he goes, "Mine," and he went out the door with it. And so anyway, when this podcast takes off, I'm reporting his butt to HR, and I'm going to get him fired.
We need to get an HR department first.
You know what? Mr. Pickles, my HR guy, and he's going to...
Mr. Pickles loves me, sir. All right, you told him about heads getting chopped off, and now he's scared of you.
That might have been an exaggeration, but there was a whole lot of guppy concussions. Let's put it that way.
So I'm gonna keep off track on this one. And what I did is,
Good luck.
I took that hood, because having the hood with those aluminum tanks are really hard to find, and I'll post it on our Twitter page to make sure that we have the video on there.
I did tweet out a couple times this week.
Be proud. Jimmy didn't know what a podcast is. He's podcasting. He's never been on social media, and now he has a Twitter account and posting. That's it, Adam. Pickle applause. Yes.
Yay.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Like my brother says, what is Facebook?
What is Facebook?
I don't have that.
So again, we'll post it on the Twitter account. And what I did is I took the original hood, and all the electrical in it was rotten. So I had to remove the electrical, and then I used a LED light strip kit that was waterproof. I wired it into the original switch, the rotating clicker switch, and it works great.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. It's got great light.
Great light, and again, those tops are stainless steel, so they're reflective. So you just stick on the LED lights, and I soldered it and hot glued the connections to make sure the connections were also waterproof. So when you look at the top, it looks all original. It still uses its same power socket and the same switch, so you turn it on and off the same way you did in 1930.
So there's a very good chance you'll be electrocuted and will probably die.
Hey, then we don't have to deal with HR now, do we?
No.
Nana boo boo.
Yeah.
Stick your head in a metal old bubbler to get your head chopped off.
And so he steals this. He runs out of my house like a little kid, and my dog just watches him like, "Oh, look at him go!" And so he brings it home, and he does his hood, and he does a YouTube video. He sends it to me to kind of antagonize me, and then what the jerk did, he has the, I don't know if the word is balls, cojones. He had the cojones to call me and say, "Yeah, it leaks." What? What? What do you want, your freaking money back? You stole it out of my house.
So I did some homework, and I found out that tank was sealed with a mixture of asphalt, seed oil, and lead oxide. So apparently that doesn't hold up after, I don't know,
50 years.
70 years?
Yeah, 70.
Yeah, so back to decorations. I've got this really cool old ceramic mermaid that's kind of coming out of the the grass and stuff, but it's just real classic looking. And what Rob wants to do with
he
this
just
thing,
likes it because it's topless.
It is. And yeah, I mean, it is. But what Rob wants to do is he wants to take this tank and he wants to put it back in its original condition. We're going to use some black silicone, and we're gonna tighten it up so it doesn't leak so much. And then he wants to put in White Cloud minnows. Is that correct?
So I did a bunch of research on this tank, and I want to make it to the era. So I had to, figure out what heat, what filter. What did they have in 1930
Box
for
filter.
aquariums? Because that's when this whole peak got up. Is the hobby started surging. The toy market got in. Sea Monkeys kicked it off.
Sea monkeys are.
And Hasbro bought the
Righteous.
Metaframe company, which made all these aluminum frame tanks. They bought it as a toy product to sell to the market, and that's what exploded out the hobby.
You did your homework. I'm impressed.
I did my homework, sir.
Yeah.
So pre World War II, we didn't have commercialized flight. It was not available to send fish from other countries in, so we had a very limited supply that people could bring over on boats or whatever else they could find. So they had a lot of American killifish, a lot of different types. They had goldfish, because again, those were everywhere. But there was very few, very small selection on what there was available. They had, the expensive fish for only the most advanced enthusiasts were, neon tetras. Ooh, those were really
Angelfish.
expensive to
Yeah,
get, right?
They were expensive back in the day.
So most people, if they wanted to have a nice-looking, fancy fish, they named them the poor man's neon tetra was the white cloud.
Right up your alley.
Right. So the reason why I picked those is because in 1930 they didn't have traditional heaters. They didn't have really any heaters. So the reason that they had slate bottoms was not just because it was cheaper than glass at that time, but also because they used Bunsen burners to heat the aquarium.
You're just making stuff up now.
They had weird pans they put on the bottom and cook a Bunsen burner to keep the aquarium a certain temperature. That's what
So
they
you're
did.
going to put a Bunsen burner on this tank?
I
for
can't
White
wait.
Clouds?
I am not going to put a Bunsen burner on this tank because most people didn't go to that level. Most people instead got a fish that could accommodate. So white clouds are a cold water species that do not need heat. So then I also looked up what could they possibly use for filters. So the motorized filter was popularized right around after World War II. That's when it finally really hit the market hard. And these things, you'd have to oil them every 3 months, otherwise they'd burn out. They were gross, and they drip oil into the filter. They'd be a big problem. They weren't perfected at all. So what they did is they used, how we're using it, traditional piston pump aerators, and they're using hang-on-the-back filters that just blew water into them.
Yeah, some of those first filters, you actually had to start the siphon yourself, and it was just a plastic box on the back with really, I don't know if I had a motor or not.
They did not have motors in most
But
situations,
it would just-
especially in 1930.
Yeah, it would just siphon out and drop in there, and you'd have filter floss in there and some charcoal, and it would just go through that and then dump back out. The problem is if you bumped it and you lost your siphon, you're kind of screwed.
So they improved on the design, but so what people ended up doing is that wouldn't even work for them because they have your issues they described. So then they went filterless. They went, again, no heat, no filter. Maybe they'd have a bubbler, and that'd be a rare situation because piston pumps were expensive. So they just go with plants. So that's what I'm going to try to do is keep it of era and no heat. I'm going to attempt to do no filter, or if I can find one of those hang-on-the-back filters, which having an original piece is extremely hard to find, I'm going to try to make this an entire 1930s restored tank.
And the nice thing about piston pumps is that they're so nice and loud that they'll keep everybody up in the house all day long and all night long.
Which means if I'm going to do it by 1930 standards, I have to use oatmeal mixed with fish meal that I would chop myself. So we're going to see how that works.
For what?
That's what they fed
feed
white
them?
clouds.
What?
White clouds are a species of carp.
Jeepers.
Yeah.
They are also extinct in the wild.
What are?
White clouds.
You're
They were only
funny.
found in one tributary in China in the mountains. And then as far as I've understood, they're extinct in the wild. That's what I always liked about them was that they're kind of a common fish that everybody can have that doesn't exist really anymore.
Only Adam likes
Supposedly
the
in the
fact that
wild.
they're extinct.
Thank you, Cliff Claiborne from Cheers, for that useless piece of crap.
Hey, that is
Oh my
actually an
gosh.
important thing because they're like really cool hardy fish that everybody should start a tank with that wants cooler, colder water tanks.
I'll actually,
And
I'll make
nobody
it,
keeps them.
I'll make a confession, Adam. I put white clouds out of my 110 gallon what do you call it, horse trough out in my yard that I use for watering plants and stuff. And I put them out there, and I'm not kidding you. I kind of forgot I had them out there, and I took them out. The water was like 51 degrees, and they were fine. They came out. They came back in the house. They had the most beautiful color, and they're very nice. There's so many different varieties of the white clouds. I said, "Hey, Robs, do you want like the gold white cloud?" And he goes, "No." I said, "How about the longfin white cloud?" What'd you say, Rob?
No.
Yeah. What do you want?
I want of era.
Boring.
I want the 1930s
Boring.
variety before they had the selective breeding.
You
But
suck.
we are boring Mr. Pickle to death here.
No, we're
He's
not.
here to learn more about beginner aquariums, not about how they did it in the 1930s from Grandpa Jimmy over here.
Mr. Pickle, don't listen to these idiots.
Yeah.
They don't know nothing.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Wow.
All right, so next thing that you need, again, we have aeration decorations covered. So let's talk about filters. So there's a bunch of different filter choices, even from the 1930s. And what we're going to recommend is 2 easy ones, right? Hang on the back filters have been done forever. But if you're going to use a hang on the back filter, you want to do that, like we talked about the cycle. We want to have extra space for the biological bacteria. So what we recommend is go to Amazon and find yourself a Marineland Bio Wheel filter.
Those were great.
The cartridges are cheap. The pumps work great. The whole filter itself is really cheap. And it has this patented, what they call bio wheel. And what it does is gives you an extra, like, what do you say?
It's kind of like an accordion.
Polyester, accordion-looking water
Yeah.
wheel on the
Yeah,
front.
It's kind of an accordion. It's kind of like a cloth accordion type, but it's in a wheel that just rotates with the water.
So you never clean the wheel. You just make sure it continually moves. And what that's there to do is collect good bacteria to help keep that cycle going great in your tank. So I have a lot of people coming up to me, well, what size filter do I get? And they do a pretty good job. They'll literally give you a filter range. They'll say, from 10 to 20 gallons. Well, just if you're really concerned or you're going to get a lot of fish, more than you probably should, don't overstock, but if you can't help it,
You're going to do it because you have a
you're
sickness.
you're a new
Yeah.
fish and you have a sickness, you want to buy more fish. All you want to see is more, and you're not going to want to set up more tanks.
Yes,
So
you do. Set up more tanks.
if you can, double what they recommend. So if they say it works for 10, either get 2 or get a 20-gallon filter instead. That way you have more flow in your tank so it can filter out more crap as you overfeed or as, you have too many fish.
And most of those back filters you can adjust a little bit. So if you have that thing is wide open and you're getting too much
Flow in the tank.
right, and it's pinning your fish on the bottom of the tank and they can't get up, and it's like that old lady from that commercial, I've fallen and I can't get up, then you can kind of dial back that thing and adjust it for your tank, and so your fish don't have to constantly swim against a current.
And also make sure that if you have a super big one, that you protect the intake tube, because long flowing finned fish will get sucked up by the intake tube and they'll get stuck to the side of it and then they die because they struggle to get off. So block it with like some plants or put a piece of sponge around it or something just to help diffuse it. Baby guppies, they'll get sucked right up. Everything.
Hey, Adam, do you think sand would get sucked up to it?
Oh, sand would definitely get sucked
yeah,
up to it. And then
sand
your tank would be
sucks.
bad.
Robbie.
That's why you got to get a Marineland brand filter to make sure you can handle the sand.
Brought to you by...
Actually, the Hagen ones are way better in my opinion.
Well, that's also a lot more money. This is beginner. We already had Mr.
Well-
Pickles yell at us already for, making this too expensive for him.
Right.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
the Rolf C. Hagen ones. I have not been able to kill those. I had a canister filter, a Fluval, what is it, FX5, those big ones. It literally ran out of water for like 3 days, and the impeller overheated, and I just put a new one in, and it worked.
You're the man.
You're the man. So the next filter on our list is sponge filters. These are by far my favorite filter because they hold the most beneficial bacteria, and if you have small fish like corridors or shrimp, they'll eat the food right off of it. So these you can get for as low as $2 whole
What?
on Amazon or eBay. You can even get these on eBay.
You can make them yourself, too.
Yeah, you can make them yourself.
Yeah.
So Jimmy decides that he has this sweet idea because he has a bunch of fish rooms, right? He's got a ton of tanks to filter out. So he wants to make sure to save every penny, as any good breeder should. Keep it cheap. That's how you make money. So he decides that he's going to go into a 87 Cadillac and cut out the car cushions to it.
Yeah.
And then cut the car cushions into squares, wash them out, and then stick PVC pipe out the top to make his own ghetto filter. But that's not the end of it, right? He realizes
Is
these
your car locked
sponges-
out here?
I know, I have to keep it locked. He realizes that these sponges float, right? So he decides to, I'm going to keep it cheap. He grabs a bathroom tile and puts it to the bottom and glues it to the bottom of these square Cadillac car sponges. And it is by far one of the best, do-it-yourself sponge filters I've seen.
Well, when I think at one time I had about 450 tanks, and you're going, let me see, what's cheap and effective? And so I made my own sponge filters. Where I got my idea back in the day was actually from Steve Rubicki. And today we were going through some stuff at my house, and we found a catalog from, what year was it, Robs?
1995.
In 1995, and back then Steve was selling these sponge filters, and so I was buying them from him for probably about $4 a piece or so. And then once I realized I could make them for myself, I started making them, and I probably made them. I still can make them to this day for about $1.
So again, $2 on eBay or $1 by cutting it out of a 1987 Cadillac.
Oh yeah,
Right.
So if you're gonna
Okay.
go out and use, go out and buy your own foam and stuff, the one thing you want to definitely stay away from is any foam like at your Hobby Lobbies and that sort of thing. Do not get the green foam, because the green foam is fire retardant foam and it has chemicals in it.
They'll bleed into your aquarium.
But right now, if you go, you can find several places that gives good aquarium foam. A lot of our people like Steve Rubicki and all kinds of
You can get cut
Really?
sheets of it, actually.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
just order online. Just you can get a roll of it,
yeah.
of foam.
And to tell you the truth, it's just as easy to make one as it is to make 100, because once you get set up and you can make them, they work wonderful. And when I have all bare bottom tanks for my breeding, and that works out really well for me. But they're
So-
not pretty, so
So, Mr. Pickles, you had a question.
Yeah. Okay. So on the topic of filters, so I have for my 10-gallon tank, I have a Marina hang on the back S15, the slim version,
Good man.
and
Yep.
I didn't buy it. It came with the tank.
Even better.
So it uses 3 cartridges, and how often am I supposed to replace them?
So, number one, when you look at a filter, do you need to replace it? Most people just throw them out and grab a new one. Well, if you can, look at the type of filter. Is it falling apart? Is it dropping? Is it holding carbon? Is the carbon falling out? If it's not, take that over to your sink and, wash it out with your hand. Just make sure to get all that you can out of it. Don't remove everything. You're not going to want this as like a dinner plate clean. You're not going to use any
Yeah.
chemicals or soap. But take it over to your sink. Use, warm water, not hot, because you don't want to burn out the bacteria in your
cool water.
in your filter. So, warm is the most, like a tepid. And just rinse it out. Make sure that you can push water through it and put it right back in your aquarium. Only try to replace those if there's a disease in your tank and you want to make sure to eradicate the thing that may be catching some of the fungus, or if it's falling apart.
Are these
Okay.
are these carbon filters, or are they
Well, there's 2. It uses 3, right? One of them that came was a ceramic. No, one of them was a carbon one, and the
okay?
other 2 it's ceramic, like water clear, something like that.
Okay, so that's the ceramic thing is, if I'm correct, that's
Should be
going to
for
be where your
bacteria.
biological filtration is in there.
That one, you just
Yeah.
make sure water can go through it. You really never clean it.
Yeah, you don't clean that one.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like when you told me to like clean it with a tap or something, my uncle is kind of what got me into this, and he said to never clean it with a tap because the chlorine will kill the like the
That's a
bacteria.
great point.
So we are in an area where we don't have to deal with a lot of chlorine. We test our water frequently, and the
forget
city
about
of insert
We
the
don't
blank
live in
here
cities.
decides that they're not going to put any real chlorine in the water, so we don't have to even use stress coat. But in your area,
Oh,
yes, that is the
okay.
case. If
Yeah.
you have to rinse that thing out and you're in the city and they use chlorine, it will absolutely kill the water. So your family member is correct on that.
Good job.
So
Yeah, he said to like use aquarium water that's already in the tank
yes,
to
Yep.
do it.
very good catch.
Okay, so basically the whole point of this was my question was, these filter cartridges are in reality they're not that expensive, but I'm 16 and I don't have a job and I can't afford to replace them every time. So would it be possible to say like get like I was watching this guy on YouTube, and he said he was showing a bunch of ways to make your own filters. Lava rock works really well. I was thinking I could use that as biological filtration, and like put it in, and then put like sponges near the intake so that gets all the solid particles.
So
Like, would that even work?
So in a pinch, if you want to do your own DIY filter, and I'm not really versed on the filter cartridge you have. So number one, the filter that holds the carbon, don't have to replace it. Number two, the ceramic filter, definitely don't replace that. So it's
Yep.
just the mechanical filter, the one that's catching all the stuff, that you're going to eventually have to replace. So if you can, you can pull off all of the polyester off the filter, and you can wrap it and make sure that when you're doing this, that you're not making the pump catch any of the material, and you're not blocking the water so it spills out and goes all over your floor. I cannot stress that enough, but you can use quilt batting that you can purchase on Amazon, and it's like $2 for a big roll of quilt batting.
Lifetime supply.
And you can wrap it around the shell of that plastic filter cartridge, and that is the exact same material they already use for the polyester filters. It's really cheap, cheaper than using kitchen sponges, which, again, they work well, but they get clogged up a lot faster. So quilt batting, if you're looking for that ghetto, I can't afford it redneck solution, that's what we even do with some of our old filters that we can't even buy filter cartridges for.
Yeah, that's exactly what some of these guys are doing with all these different, filters over the years. They still work, but all of a sudden they quit making them. They don't make the cartridges anymore. So you just got to save a buck.
Yeah, well, the whole thing you were saying about only having to clean the mechanical filtration and not the carbon or the ceramic, that's what I found weird about this filter, because it didn't come with mechanical filtration per se. It just came with like the 3 cartridges, and
Well-
the water only goes through those cartridges.
Well, the cartridges, so the carbon, that's your chemical filtration.
My guess is that's got the filter floss around that carbon. and
Yeah,
that's-
yeah, like it has like a, I don't know, some sort of spongy sort of thing around it.
Yeah, so what you're going to want to do is you don't need the carbon. You just need that filter floss. And then
Yeah.
that traps like all the big particles. The carbon is like a chemical one, but half the time you don't need it really.
Well,
And-
that's what I was told, because in my 55-gallon tank, my uncle had told me to take out the whole carbon package little thing that's in it, and I could replace that with biomedia, and that will, like, I don't need the carbon.
Correct.
That'll work too.
Yep.
And the thing is too is
Yeah.
you can also buy bulk carbon, so you can replace the carbon inside that little bag, and that's relatively inexpensive. But they have some stuff like Black Diamond, which is very good carbon, but it's super expensive. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. Where you're trying to save a buck, you're a new aquarist, definitely cut corners where you can. It's not really going to hurt anything.
And just for those beginner people that are listening, the carbon is the chemical filtration to try to make the water a bit clearer. The ceramics, or what we call biological media, like beads we put in there, are the biological filtration, where they have the good bacteria sticking to it. And the filter floss, or polyester quilt batting, is the mechanical, where it actually catches the pieces, the crap in the water, the excess food.
Mr. Pickle, does your 55-gallon, is that the old style Marineland ones where it's got the double cartridges on it? It's got like an open
no.
cartridge?
No.
Okay, which kind is that one?
The one that I have, it came with the guy gave it to me with the tank. It's I'm not sure what it's called. I know it's Fluval something.
Okay.
And it has, like, in the back, it has this big sponge that's like has bigger holes on one side, and on one side it has a lot smaller holes. And then after the sponge, there's the carbon.
Okay.
then
And
after
the
that-
carbon's in a bag, right?
Yeah, it's in like this little baggie
Yep.
that you can tell he hasn't replaced. And my uncle said from the way it looks, the bag's probably gonna break, and I'm gonna have carbon everywhere pretty soon.
Just throw it away.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, throw that away. You don't need that.
yeah,
The
so he told
sponge,
me to
save it until it falls apart, and then just cut a new sponge and put that in there.
yeah.
Well,
And
perfect.
then what else is there?
And then there's the biological media, which is like these little ceramic sticks.
Okay.
Perfect.
The little baggie that you have, you could literally take like pantyhose and put carbon in that
Yeah.
and drop that into your filter, into your big one.
Make
for
sure
your
you wash
Fluval.
it. You don't want mom's perfume on it.
No.
Yeah.
Well, no, yeah, he said I don't actually need the carbon, so I shouldn't have to worry about getting that. I could just replace it with biomedia. That would
Yep.
work, right?
That would work just fine.
Well, perfect, Mr.
Okay,
Pickle.
so-
I appreciate the question. So let's dive on. Again, those are the two main ones. And again, just to go back in the sponge filter, the idea of the sponge filter is you take a sponge, a tube goes in the sponge, and at the bottom of the tube, air blows through, and the water sucks in through the sponge into the tube and out. So it's just cycling the water through the sponge, and the sponge collects all the garbage. That is one of my favorite filters. You can't go wrong. And if it doesn't catch enough, you can either add another sponge filter or just turn up your aerator.
Oh, so you only need an air pump?
Only need an air pump.
Yep.
Oh, I thought a sponge filter was the thing you put on the intake of your actual filter.
Nope, and we'll
That's
make
a
sure to
sponge.
have a link to a couple good sponge filter options on our Twitter account for you.
There we go. So yeah, the thing with a sponge filter, it's more for people who have multiple tanks and are trying to save a buck. They're not pretty to look at, to be honest. I mean, so your filter that you have sounds like an excellent deal. You don't have to really look at anything but the intake tube. So I would continue using that. But sponge filters we use a lot for. They work really well for like a medicine tank. You know, if you've got a quarantine tank, and it's just kind of like off in another room, and it's not your show tank. But yeah, you don't want to use sponge filters so much for a show tank because they're just not pretty, honestly.
So the
Oh.
next couple things on our list is heat. So if you're having anything besides white clouds or goldfish, you have to have heat. And for a beginner aquarist, they have to do a lot of homework of, well, what should I put it at? And I don't know how to read the thermometer correctly. So instead, you can go to Walmart and purchase a very cheap heater, and they're preset heaters. They're based for the average tropical fish, and tropical fish, they an expert might say, oh no, they need 80 degrees. Oh no, they need 72. Well, trust me, both of those fish will live in a 76 degree aquarium just fine. So you're a beginner, go out, get the preset filters or heaters, and real cheap. Pick them up at Walmart, Amazon. You just drop them in, and they're completely submerged. Do not leave the top where you think that, oh, water's going to get in and short my heater. Nope, these are complete submergible heaters that they have nowadays. So don't be afraid. And when you do water changes, watch where that heater is, because if the heater's out of water plugged in, you'll burn it out really, really quickly if it's not submerged underwater.
It'll
They
explode.
explode.
It won't be a happy camper. You'll either electrocute yourself, your fish. It won't be a good deal.
And the
And
thing,
here's
go ahead, Adam.
sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry, Jim. Here's a trick that I did, and I don't know if Jim was going to tell the same thing. With those submersible heaters, you can put them underneath. You can, because they're fully submersible, you can put them underneath your outtake tube. Your outtake flow of your filter, and then the water will go over that, and then it'll spread the heat more evenly across your whole tank. Don't just stick it far in the one corner, because then it's always on.
It'll be like, putting a space heater in your house. The living room will be warm, but the rest of the house will be cold. You want to make sure it's where air's moving, or in this situation, water's moving.
I like to put mine at least halfway down the aquarium, just for the fact that when I do a water change, I don't want to have to crawl back and unplug the darn heater when I do a water change, because then half the time I forget to plug the heater back in. The next day I see my fish have got clamped fins, and I'm kind of going, what's wrong with you guys today? And I go, oh, I forgot to plug back in the heater. The other thing you got to know when you're buying a heater is you need to buy the correct size. And each box will tell you that this is good for a 55-gallon tank, this is good for a 100-gallon tank. I think the rule of thumb was, what is it, Adam? Is it like 5 watts per gallon or something? So
Yeah, that's what I usually did.
And
But if you do the submersible ones and you put them in the middle of the tank underneath that filter, you actually could get away with a little bit smaller one.
right. And the thing is heaters are not cheap to run. I mean, anything that draws a lot of power, that creates heat, like your regular blow dryer or the heater that you have out in your porch to keep your shoes warm, all that stuff runs expensive. It runs up your heat bill. So that's why you're talking like people with Steve Rubicki, who he heats his room because he's got 400 tanks, and that makes total sense. But when you've only got the one tank, you can of course have the heater. And I think that what Adam said is put it in the middle of the tank underneath your intake, and you'll get better circulation that way.
So getting closer to the end of our list is lighting. Most of these tanks that you buy, either if you buy it used or if you buy it as a kit at Walmart or wherever you purchase your tanks on Amazon, they'll come with a hood. If they don't come with the hood, you can buy hoods specially made to fit your tank, and they'll either come with an LED light, which is the preference because, one, it's easier in your electrical bill and it doesn't add excess heat to your aquarium, or a traditional screw-in bulb. So it's not necessarily what hood to choose. Any hood that fits your tank will work. It's how long you run the light. So when you're starting up a new aquarium, positioning your house matters. If you're going to put it into a sunroom where there's 3 walls that are nothing but windows, you're going to have a ton of algae without any light. So make sure that you're not putting it into a super well-lit room with windows. You're putting it somewhere where it has a little bit more shade or away from a window, because you're going to have a bunch of green in your tank. So even if you move your aquarium to a windowless room, you're still running your light, and that's still going to create algae. So what I recommend beginners to do, until they realize how much algae is built up in their tank with the ammonia cycle when they're first cycling, is only have your light on from the time, let's say that you're a kid or you're an adult and you go to school, you get off school and you come home, turn your light on then. You'll have your light on for, say, from 3:30 or 4:30 when you get off work or school, and you'll have it running until you go to bed. And that's a good 6-hour cycle where your fish are getting light, your plants are getting enough light, and you're not going to have a bunch of excess algae growth right off the get-go. Later, once you understand, how your plants are growing, how the algae is going in your tank, then you can turn on from when you wake up in the morning to when you go to bed. But to start off of, I always recommend, once you get home from work, turn it on until you go to bed.
Yeah, a lot of people want to pretend it's a night light and leave it on all night long. And, if it's not getting any light whatsoever during the daytime, that works. I don't like having the aquarium light on at night just for the fact that the fish kind of get screwed up a little bit. And so during the day, they're not very active. And during the evening, then they just partying all day long.
So if you want a night light for your kid, there's 2 compromises you can do. One, glow-in-the-dark accessories. You can get glow-in-the-dark plastics. You can get glow-in-the-dark caves. And those work really good. They'll give you a nice, 45-minute light cycle until they fall asleep. It may not be enough to glow the room, but at least enough to attract the kids' attention until they fall asleep. If you still want an actual night light, they have hoods or light accessories that either go white, bright white for the day, and you can turn it on to moonlight mode, which gives a nice blue dim light across the entire tank. But that also does gain a small amount of algae, so be aware of that. But that would be a day and night cycle that will be applicable, so you can have a night light for your kid.
Yeah, these new LED lights they come out. There are so many cool things that these things have, and they've made it so much easier to grow plants, to have a night light, to have different spectrums that you can adjust. So if you have certain fish, like Steve Rubicki was talking last week, he's got the angelfish with the blue. You might be able to adjust that LED light to give your fish a little more blue color. So it's just, the things out there are just tremendously so advanced.
So Jimmy and I, years back, we bought a bunch of different lighting accessories, trying to find what's cheap and what works. And we got this cool light setup that we were trying to build, and we're trying to emulate it off of a different light setup we were borrowing from a friend. So we tried it and had this remote control, and it had these lighting adjustment options, and it had this demo feature, so it was showing in a store. We turn on the demo feature, and this thing looks like it came out of David Bowie's rear end. Just flashing colors, lights, like a disco, just strobing, all these colors and mixtures, and it was just beautiful. And then we realized that 2 of the neon tetras were having an epileptic seizure in the tank and died.
Pretty accurate, yeah.
Right then and there, the neons just spun in a circle and then just flatlined.
Yeah,
so be careful. Don't just flip on and off. How do you like that when you're in a completely dark room? It's just that much worse for your animal.
Absolutely. What else you got, Robs?
So last bit on the lighting, be a cheater. If you don't want to do it, you don't trust your kid with responsibilities, go to Walmart, buy yourself a timer. Put that light on a timer.
Oh, that is a great idea.
All right. So last little accessories is every tank, no matter what you have, will have algae, even if you're on the 6-hour schedule in a windowless room. That's just part of regular maintenance, so get yourself a good algae scraper. There's essentially 2 different types they have in the market. You can either get what they call a blade on the stick or a brush on the stick. They do work. Jimmy and I's favorite is we like the magnetic ones. They cost a little bit more money, but what they do is have 2 magnets. One sticks to the inside of your aquarium, the other sticks to the outside. And you just take your hand on the outside of the aquarium and move the magnet across your aquarium, scraping off the algae, and you can just leave that in your tank.
They also have
until it gets
Go ahead, Adam.
Until it gets old and disgusting.
No, until you put it all the way down to the bottom and it picks up a whole clump of sand, and then you drag the sand all over your glass and scratch all your glass up.
Yeah, that's why you shouldn't have sand in your tank, Adam. Oh wait, it wasn't you. It was Rob's that likes sand.
Or don't let your kid use the magnet.
The one thing that Rob's just said is my favorite is the magnetic one. I like the floating magnetic one. So when it falls off, it goes up to the top of the tank, and you're not playing that game that you go to the
Get the net, try to get it scooped
Right.
out, and disturb your tanks, knock your decorations over.
Yep. So buy the floating. I think a good brand is a Magna Float. They have different types. The bigger your tank, the thicker the glass, the more magnet you need. Right there again on the outside of the label when you buy things, they say up to a 55-gallon tank. I've got one that I use. I have a 220-gallon tank that we do some maintenance on over at a nearby town in a hospital. Yeah, and that magnet, if you're not careful when you're trying to, you can't pull it apart. You got to twist them apart
It'll rip the pacemaker right out of your chest.
right out of your chest. This thing will bust your finger. It's so powerful. You got to be so careful with these big magnets, and so just make sure you get one that works for you. And then I like to take them out of the water so they don't get all crusty like Adam and Rob, but they're lazy. So
All right, so now we've got the tank. We have the substrate. We have the decorations, maybe plants.
Yeah.
We have this cool, bubbly chest that isn't whapping off fish's heads.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
We have heat. We have a sweet filter that we got from the uncle and gave some great advice from the uncle.
What else
put
we
on the
need?
back. We have lighting. We even put it on a timer because, Mr. Pickles keeps forgetting to shut off the light at night.
well, we're golden then. We're good to go.
Where's the fish, bro?
What?
Yes, we have to tell fish.
Well, we
So-
don't need no stinking fish in
We
there.
have a list of fish that we recommend for beginners, and goldfish are not on this list for obvious reasons.
Because goldfish poop like Clydesdales.
Goldfish poop a lot. They're poop machines.
Poop machine.
Poop machines.
Extraordinaires.
So, number one on the list, and we're going to be a little more vague on these topics, is number one's tetra. Tetras are great selection for fish. So, tetras have a long, long list of different types of tetras.
Many tetras.
Many
Some-
tetras.
Some easy to take care of, some not. Just do
So-
your homework.
Do your homework. Find which ones you're picking, but you can't go wrong with a lot of tetras. Some are a little more finicky. Neon tetras can't stand disco parties.
Right. Emperor tetras are a little harder to keep.
Cardinals.
Congo tetras
noses.
grow massive, and I mean massive, like so big they'll outgrow your tank.
Right.
But most tetras are really hardy. Otherwise, there's even some. I think the worst tetra that you could possibly get as a starter is a blind cave tetra.
Sweet. I like those.
They have no eyeballs. They're completely blind, so they're hypersensitive to noise, vibration, and smell. So if you put flakes in the water and they see a guppy's tail, they'll just grab it because they think it's a flake food. So do your homework, but most tetras are extremely placid. They work with almost every community of fish out there. They're actually normally the ones that are getting targeted in the tank. And, start off with, your rummy nose. Start off with your bleeding heart tetra. There's a lot of great tetras out there. Glow light tetras, or even what they call those glow fish tetras. They have Danios, white skirt tetras that are all bred to have these like neon colors. People might not like them in the hobby because they don't call them authentic fish, but they're still a great fish for kids to start off with. Next is live bearers. So most any live bearers, but of course the guppies, what everybody starts off with.
Love the guppies.
Bright colors, continually moving around and have fun. They breed like rabbits, and which works out well for kids to watch the whole process in front of their faces. And they're really hardy. I mean, overall. And some people don't ever get out of that phase and just keep feeder guppies around.
Yeah, like Adam.
They are not feeder guppies.
Oh,
So,
man. Let it go, Adam.
let it go.
Let it go.
No.
Good air in, bad air out.
Bad out. And for the bottom, corridors.
Oh, love them.
So get your.
Yep.
Most pet stores have assorted corridors. They come in essentially 3 flavors. There's the bronze. They have this kind of brown orange color on their back. There's salt and pepper, which are speckled,
Paleatus.
multicolor, and
Yep.
they have albino.
Yep.
If you're going
The
to pick,
albinos are usually of the bronze.
right, if you're going to pick them, pick the salt and pepper or bronze. The albinos are the least hardy, just because albinos, by their
Genetic.
nature, the genetics are not that great. So pick the other ones if you can, so help it.
Yeah, because the speckled ones are called Paleatus, and the green ones are called, I'm not making this up, green anus.
No, Aeneas.
Aeneas, but I like anus better.
I like anus better.
anus better.
And then, of course, the albinos. The albinos are genetically the weakest, and so I would not recommend them for beginners.
So the next has been your kids' favorite. Yeah, they got to cup them for years.
Oh, my kids, when my kids would make me mad, I'd get 400, 500, 600 bettas in, and I'd make them stand at the kitchen sink, and then they'd have to cup bettas because they come in little tiny bags about 1.5 ounces of water, And then they would stand there for hours putting bettas in cups. And I still love bettas. My kids don't, but they're grown up now and they have their own house.
So Betas 101, betas, you do not put a male with a male, but you can have females with females.
Correct?
So you can have a sorority of multiple female betas, and you can request those at your pet store. They're real hardy. They can withstand a lot of different temperatures. They can withstand low oxygen environments, but contrary to popular opinion, they need heat. So when you see a beta in a bowl, ask their owner, do you have a heater? Or is it by a heated vent in your home? They do need a higher temperature, but otherwise, they're one of the most hardy fish. They used to ship them on paper towels, just moist paper towels, and because they can breathe oxygen, that's how they'd ship them overseas.
Back in the day, yeah, many years ago, they would do that, but now
So-
they're a lot more humane in the way they do it.
They can take a beating, and that's really what you want for a beginner fish.
I'll give you a little hint. So, up here in the Northland, even though it says 72 degrees on your thermostat, your house is still pretty cold. And I've had people say, my bed is just not as active during the winter. And if you take your betta bowl, if you just have a bowl with a betta in it, and you put it on top of your refrigerator gives off enough warmth to warm up that bowl and make that fish a lot happier. Don't put it on the back of your $1,700 TV to try to warm it up. But on top of your fridge works pretty good, and I've done that over the years.
I've measured fridges with the beta sitting on top as up to 76 degrees.
Yeah.
Yep. So the last couple are Rasboras. And, we were trying to sit there. We're prepping for the podcast before this. There's not a whole lot of Rasboras we can think of that would be bad for your tank. Even the larger Rasbora breeds, which is like what they call the Roseline shark, is a type of a barb Rasbora. They're great community tank fish. They'll grow a little bit bigger, but they'll even leave neon tetras alone. They're a hardy species of fish, and there's not a lot that you can go wrong with.
Even though Rob says you like a Roseline shark, you're always going to have your bullies in the fish world. And I've had neons that have been mean as heck. I've had jeepers. I've had some male bettas that would leave the females alone. I mean, you never know. There's always the bully in the bunch, so you always just kind of want to watch. Just because we say Roseline sharks are pretty good doesn't mean they're all good.
I mean, Jimmy and I, we're good humans, but Adam can be a real pain in the ass.
He can be a jerk. Are you listening,
That's
Adam?
all right.
Love you.
Yeah, I am.
Love you a long time.
Yeah.
All right, and second to last on the list is dwarf gouramis. So gouramis normally, as a species, get really big. They're normally aggressive. Dwarf gouramis hold a lot of color. Normally they come in either blue or blue-red varieties. The classic dwarf gourami is a blue striped red fish, and it's very pretty. They stay very small. And you can get just one to add to a community tank because they don't mind being alone. They're more of an antisocial fish. They're not mean. They just keep to themselves. And they add a lot of color. Adding one to a community tank goes a long way, and they stay nice and small. And the last but not least, and the most that we're most cautious about, is a Pleco. And not just a Pleco. So if you go to a normal pet store, if they're a good pet store, they're going to warn you about Plecos. So if you go to what we call a Florida traditional Pleco that they used to carry at Walmart no longer carries fish, those will get as long as your arm. They grow massive sizes. So if you have a 55-gallon aquarium, you probably can have one for quite a long time.
And when Mr. Pickle bought his, he had a huge Pleco there, didn't you?
Yeah, it was the size of my arm. I sold it last week.
There you go.
Yep.
So what you're going to look for, and what we recommend, is bristlenose Plecos. Bristlenose Plecos only grow to about 4 inches max, and they're extremely vivacious and clean all day. But what we were most concerned about is when you're starting out, add the Pleco last. Start up your tank, get a couple fish going, make sure the cycle's working, and give your tank at least a month to start building up algae. So do not add a Pleco to your tank unless you see algae in your tank because they have nothing to feed off of. And then when you do, if you have a small tank, like a 10 or 20 gallon, get algae wafers for them as well because the algae in the tank is not going to be enough to feed them.
And if you're feeding flake food, normally not enough flake food ever hits the bottom for them to ever get. And they don't normally come to the top. You'll have your few Plecos that will come to the top searching for food. But for the most part, they're going to lay on the bottom and go, feed me, Seymour.
So what we do around here is when we start up either breed Plecos, grow all Plecos, whatever we do, we try to use some of our local harvest. So zucchinis, cucumbers, melon. They love almost all types of melon.
I have a crime to report, Robs. So
Melon.
last Thursday, I was doing my normal job, and I made the mistake of going to this small town in northern Minnesota, and I made the mistake of not locking my door. And I came out, and I had 95 pounds of freaking zucchini in the back. And I look over, and my customers are all laughing their heads off. And this has happened about 10 times this summer. And I thought, oh, zucchini season's over. I was wrong.
Everyone in Minnesota, especially, dumps zucchini off on everyone. It's a going joke. Like, I heard this from Jimmy. Not the first time I've heard this.
Yeah.
People will literally, if you have a truck, like a box bed truck, they will come, if you park at, any local place, a grocery store, they will come and just dump it in your truck because everybody grows it, but no one uses it for anything.
Well, they get so gosh darn big. Some of them will get as big as your arm and weigh 10 pounds, they're pretty much useless.
But they don't have flavor. You can't use them for cooking. Some of them are
Yeah.
partially hollow.
When I had
Plecos love them.
yeah, when I had all those Bristol's Plecos that I bought from Stewart down in Arkansas, I came back and I probably brought back about 3,000 Plecos. And so I was telling all my customers, I really want some zucchini if you got some. And that was a mistake. And now I don't have that many Plecos. I got very few Plecos, but I've got a lot of zucchini. I bet you I have 200 pounds of zucchini in my freezer.
So, fun fact, like Jimmy just said, zucchini, cucumber, for fish, keep frozen. So slice it up, cube it up, slices work better. Don't use like small cubes, and freeze it in Ziploc bags. It can get freezer burnt, doesn't matter. Just take it. You don't really have to even unthaw it. You can just skewer them to the bottom of your tank in your gravel, and as they melt, Plecos will just come and destroy it.
Yeah, right now Rob's has got a pair of Plecos. He's got all kinds of babies, and if you take a piece of zucchini the size of a hamburger slice, and if you put it on the bottom, he'll have 100 Plecos on that darn thing.
And as you train them and get them more used to eating zucchini and other fresh goods that you normally throw out, they will literally come eat it off the top of the surface. So you throw a piece in there, zucchini floats, they will go to the surface and suck it off the surface of the water.
Yep, and the next day you'll have nothing but a bunch of Pleco poop on the bottom, and the rind.
The rind
just floats to the top, and you just take it and throw another piece in. But they will.
Don't leave the rind in your tank. It's more crap for you to make more ammonia.
Right, but they will eat themselves to death. Those things will eat and eat and eat and poop and poop and poop and grow like weeds.
So just to recap, tetras, live bearers, corydoras, dwarf gouramis, betas, rosboras, and Plecos after you have algae are all great beginner solutions. Give those a try. And again, we love questions. Thank you, Mr. Pickle, for joining us. It was enlightening. And if you got more questions, we'll certainly follow up with you after, Mr. Pickle. But we love your emails. We love your voicemails you guys send us. So continue to do so. aquariumguyspodcast.com. And on the bottom of the website, again, is our number, 218-214-9214. Give us a call. We'll air your question right on the show.
Yeah, we had our best week last week. We've only been doing this for what? How many weeks, Rob? 6, 7 weeks?
Less. I think it's like 4 weeks, but we got 6 episodes. This is number 7.
Number 7 episode. And we had a tremendous amount of listens last week. Thank you guys for doing that. Please tell your friends to tune in. Please give us ideas. We're not here to say that we're experts on any of this stuff, but we're just here to try to answer some questions. If we don't know the
We'll find
answer,
it.
we'll find it for you and stuff. But we're here to help you succeed. That's the only reason we're here. We want you to succeed because people aren't in this hobby anymore like they used to be, and we want to see this hobby succeed because we love it so much.
So if you love us, go to our website, buy a T-shirt, get a mug, whatever you can find on our merch store, and again, we'll be ready for your questions. So Adam, what I'd like to do is, you were talking to me about adding a segment to the show. Do we have that ready this week?
Kinda, yeah.
So what we talked about is doing, you could say, the fish of the episode, since we do this more than once a week on occasion. So what is the special fish of this episode, sir?
The special fish of this episode is freshwater candy cane gobies. And they are Awas flavus, I think is their scientific name.
Not a
But they're
beginner
like-
species.
Huh?
Not a beginner species.
No, not a beginner species, but they're really, really fun. I actually put them in with my discus because they could take the heat of the discus tank. And males are about 3 to 4 inches. They're brightly colored. They hop on the bottom like a classic goby. They love frozen bloodworms, live blackworms, whatever you can feed them.
Beef heart?
Beef heart. I didn't really have them eat beef heart, but I just had them eat kind of a little bit of mostly insects.
Carnivorous.
Yeah, they're carnivorous. They never really went for flake food or pellets or anything that I could see, but maybe you could try it with some of the newer pellets that they have out now. Those were some of my most favorite fish because the males would go and they are a little bit aggressive towards each other, but not really towards any other fish. And the males will brighten up and have displays, and they'll throw up their top fins and, show off, and they'll open their mouths, and their mouths are really big, and each other, show off. And the females are a little bit smaller, like 2-3 inches, and they like to hide in clay flower pots or caves.
So like most gobies, these species, again, if you can do brackish, certainly put them in a brackish tank. Otherwise, if you're going to have them with other freshwater species, add some salt to the water. That complements them really well.
Yeah, I loved them. Those were one of my most favorite fish for keeping because they're just weird, unique. They only come in, I think, in the like March, April.
They're a seasonal
I think
fish.
they come from Brazil. Yeah, they're a seasonal fish. You almost never see them because people just don't get them.
So what we're going to do is each week we're going to try to grab a new, unusual species that people might not have ever heard of. Most people that are either getting in the hobby or even been in the hobby a long time don't know what's been out there or what is no longer offered. So we're just going to try to do the obscure species of the week or the podcast, and, maybe you'll learn something. Well, Jimmy, is that all you got?
That's all I got for you today, Bob.
All right, Adam?
That's all I got.
All right, thanks again, Mr. Pickles.
Yeah, thanks to you guys for having me on the show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. And I hope you guys have a mild winter up there, and I hope you have great success. Please give us an update. Yeah, he laughs. We're from Minnesota.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a mild winter, you wiener.
Yeah, no, exactly. We have no mild winters.
Yeah, we have snow up to our eyeballs, and that's only because we're standing on top of our car.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks again, guys. Let's cue that outro.
Thanks, guys, for listening to this podcast. Please visit us at aquariumguyspodcast.com and listen to us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and anywhere you can listen to podcasts.
We're practically
Thanks.
everywhere. We're on Google. I mean, just go to your favorite place. Pocket Casts. Subscribe to make sure it gets push notifications directly to your phone. Otherwise, Jim will be crying into sleep.
Can I listen to it in my treehouse?
In your treehouse, in your fish room, even alone at work.
What about at my man cave?
Especially your man cave.
Yeah.
Only if Adam's there
No.
with feeder guppies.
No.
They're endless.
You midget-loving, sucking motherfucker.
Well, I guess we'll see you next time. Later.